who have laid down their lives for our freedom. Their sacrifices have paved the way for the liberties that we cherish today. Thank you all for taking time to join us and for showing your support. And now, if you would please rise for the posting of the colors by the Joint Color Guard from the Utah National Guard, and as the Utah National Guard Brass Ensemble performs our national anthem. Thank you to the Utah National Guard and the Brass Ensemble for that performance. Please be seated. At this time, we invite Utah Representative Jennifer Daly Provo to give the invocation. Jennifer.
Good morning. On behalf of my family, friends, and community, it is my privilege to welcome you to the People's House. Our Capitol Hill and entire downtown community is honored by your attendance at this most reverent celebration of duty, sacrifice, and service. On this Memorial Day, we come before the Creator of mankind to remember those who bravely served our great country, and as a result of their service, were called home in final rest. We recognize that we can never be grateful enough for the sacrifices they made, and we are humbled by the willingness to put their own lives aside for the benefit of each of ours. We carve their sacrifices into our hearts so we may never forget the loss of these heroes, nor may we ever forget the pain and sacrifice of their families and loved ones. We ask for blessing upon the souls of those good men and women who gave their last breath in defense of our nation, our freedom, and our children's future. We also ask for the blessing of everyone gathered here today to grant us the strength, the will, and the wisdom to rise to the challenges of our time and to meet them in full faith that we share the desire for a safe and peaceful nation and world. Our state and nation have been blessed with an indomitable spirit, which drives a universal desire toward a harmonious existence. As we strive ever toward that day, may we never ever forget our beloved fallen. We offer gratitude for the opportunity to gather here today to celebrate and acknowledge the debt we owe and which we can never repay. And we offer gratitude for the unending opportunity to be worthy in any measure of the sacrifices that we honor here today. May we strive to be worthy through our own services and works which further the goals of peace, happiness, and safety for every person in our great state and our great nation. In honor and with humility, we give thanks.
Thank you for that very moving prayer. It is now my pleasure to introduce another dedicated public servant. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, and we are honored to have her with us today.
I'm honored to be here today. On Veterans Day, we recognize all of our veterans. On Memorial Day, we recognize the ones who've given the last full measure of devotion, the ones who didn't come home. I come from a family of service. My grandpa, uncles, and brothers have served in the military, and my family's been blessed, at least in recent history, that every time we've said goodbye to somebody, we've welcomed them home. And today we're here to remember the ones who haven't been as lucky, the ones who come home in boxes or haven't made it home. This morning I was in Woods Cross and I watched a flag raising ceremony, and I was really touched at the thought that all over the United States today, other communities are doing the same thing. We're still united as a country when it comes to the things that truly matter, and this is one of the things that truly matters. So I just want to share a quick experience that I had. A couple of years ago, I got the chance to go to France, to Normandy, and to walk through the U.S. cemetery there, and I was deeply touched. I also got to go to Flanders and Luxembourg while I was there and see sacred U.S. soil in foreign nations where we've left our servicemen and women and hallowed ground for them. And I was there with a good friend who's retired from the Army, but he's unique in that he also grew up in France. And he used to teach at West Point, and he would take cadets on this tour and talk to them about military history. And as I was standing there in the cemetery at Luxembourg, reading the names on a wall of people who were missing in action, Americans who were missing, and they had a name, an age, and a state for everybody on the wall. And he came over and got really emotional, and he said, I hope you can appreciate while you're here that this is a uniquely American thing. The history of the world is the history of wars, and we talk about places and battles, and they're almost always about the king or the leader. But in America, we dedicate the ground, we hallow this ground, and there's a marker for every American who fell here. And even for the ones we can't account for, there's a wall with their name, their age, and where they come from. Because what makes us mighty isn't the battles, it's the Americans who are willing to sacrifice, to volunteer for freedom, not just for Americans, but for the rest of the world. So today I'm honored to be part of this ceremony. I'm honored to be here to speak to you on the day that we stop here in our busy lives where we're not necessarily on sacred ground, we're not necessarily at a battlefield, to remember the names that are on those walls and on those markers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Malloy, for your words and being with us today. Okay, next we have a special treat for you. Haley Kirkland, Kate Plew, and Alicia Wrigley, also known as Company B, will now perform a special musical number accompanied by Steve Erickson on the piano.
This Memorial Day, we'd like to pay tribute to all of our servicemen and women and their families who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of peace. As we sing through this Armed Forces medley, please stand as you hear your branch of the military called, and we invite you to sing along. From the Army, excuse me, Army. First to fight for the right and to heal the nation's might, and the Army goes rolling along. Pillar of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the Army's on its way. Shout out the cadence loud and strong, for wherever we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along. Now, Coast Guard. So here's the Coast Guard marching song. We sing on land, on sea, through surf and storm and howling gale. High shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save our fight and die. Aye, Coast Guard, we are for you. And last, Air Force. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Adam, now give 'em the gun. Now we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, we'll go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force. Just you wait and see.
How about another round of applause for Company B? Beautifully done. Thank you so much. It is now my great honor to introduce our next and final speaker this morning, Governor Spencer J. Cox, a steadfast advocate for our military, veterans, and their families. It is a privilege to hear from him today. Please welcome Governor Spencer Cox.
Thank you, Sterling. Ladies and gentlemen, it's so great to be here with you. Representative, thank you for your words today. I apologize for being a little bit late. That was not intentional. I tried to be punctual, but I need to tell you a little bit about my morning. So I just returned from Tremont, from the cemetery there, where we were able to dedicate a new memorial to four brothers, four amazing young men, the Borgstrom brothers. It's possible that many of you have never heard of the Borgstrom brothers. And so I think it's important that we tell their story and that everyone in this state and in this country understand what true sacrifice is. The Borgstrom family lived in the small town of Thatcher, just outside of Tremont. They had 10 kids. One of their boys died when he was 9 years old of a medical condition, so it was a family that was familiar with tragedy. 5 of their boys went to serve during World War II. Those 5 sons were serving, and in the space of 6 months in 1944, 4 of them would lose their lives in service to our country. They became the only 4 Gold Star family in our country during that time. There was a 5-star Gold Star family in our country. The first son was killed on an island, survived the fighting, and was helping to remove trees when one of those trees fell on him tragically in March. In June, a second son died in combat. And then the 2 twins, 19-year-old twins, in August, both of them were killed in combat. It's almost impossible to imagine the grief of those parents. There's been a book written that I hope you all get a chance to read, and it talks about not just the grief of the family, but of the community, of course, of the telegraph operator who had to deliver every one of those messages. And when that 4th one came in, he went to the home of the bishop and handed it to him and said, I cannot again experience the grief of that mother, and turned with his head down and walked away. I've been thinking about grief and sacrifice, and I've shared this with some of you before, but I was transported back to when I was 14 years old, and I had been asked to do something. I was a freshman in high school, played the trumpet, and they needed someone to play taps at a funeral of a veteran who had died in our town. It was January. It was about 10 degrees outside. There was a couple feet of snow. And this was the first time I had been asked to do it. Some of the older boys who would normally play were unavailable. And I have to be honest, selfish 14-year-old me had no interest whatsoever in doing that. I don't know if any of you played the trumpet, but it's not easy to play in 10 degrees in the winter. Not something you look forward to. And my friends were playing basketball that day, and I wanted to be in a warm gym hanging out with my friends. So I whined and complained, and I tried to get out of it. I tried to get other people to do it, and realized I was the only one left that could actually do it. So I put on my snow boots and my coat, and I trudged out there in the snow, just mumbling the whole way. And I got there, and there was a little graveside service. There was a casket laid out, flag on top. And I started to hear stories about the service of this veteran, this incredible member of our community who had sacrificed so much. I saw his family, I saw his widow, his tears were running down her cheeks. And it came my turn to play, and I was so emotionally moved. There was a spirit there that I had not experienced before. Not just the cold, but I could barely get the sound out of the trumpet, and the haunting of taps as it played just touched me to my core, and I realized that before long I had tears running down my cheeks, and there were a couple things that happened to me that day. One, I understood what real sacrifice was. I thought I was sacrificing to go out and play in the cold for a few minutes, and I realized that's not what sacrifice is. Sacrifice is truly dedicating your life to a higher cause, something bigger and better. A willingness, true sacrifice, a willingness to go and actually give your life for the people that you love and care about, and even the people that you don't love and care about, and people who maybe even don't love you and what you're doing, and doing it anyway. That's real sacrifice. The second thing I learned that day is that I would never again complain about giving back, about serving, about trying to make our community, our state, and our country a better place. I will forever be grateful for that experience that I had there that changed my life. Now, as I was there in Tremont, and I was looking at some of the extended family members who are still with us, and saw an incredible gathering like this of so many individuals, I had a couple of thoughts that came to me. The first one was why? Why were those four brothers willing to do that, to serve, to sacrifice, to give their lives, and to die? And by the way, there were 5 blue stars hanging in that window, and one by one, 4 of them turned to gold, but there was a fifth blue star that son was able to return home and regretted it. His entire life wished that he had died with his brothers, carried that burden of being the one that got back. There was a younger brother too, and at this funeral they had, a few years later when they were finally able to get all the bodies back, they had this big funeral, all four together. Dignitaries from the state. The governor was there. A 4-star general came to attend that funeral, and the mom, of course, grieving, said to the general, "Will you please make sure that our youngest son never has to go through this?" And the general said, "I promise, as long as I'm serving, whatever it takes, I'll do whatever I can to make sure that if he is drafted or called up, that he'll be able to serve close to home." And then the dad heard that conversation, walked over and said, we can't require that. If our country needs our youngest son, then they can have our youngest son. Why? Why is this place worth giving up the best blood of a generation? Why would we do that? And I think the answer lies in the foundation of our country. This is the first country in the history of the world, the only country in the history of the world that was founded on an idea. It wasn't founded on a people, on a race or a religion. It was founded on an idea. This idea that we find in our organizing documents. This idea that all of us are created equal, right? The Declaration of Independence, and says that we are endowed with rights, that these rights don't come from government, that we the people have these rights. We're endowed with them from on high. These rights come from our Creator, and they are these inalienable rights. There are a few of them. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now think about that. Again, this was misunderstood throughout the history of the world by every country on earth, but that our rights do not come from government or a king, that we all have them inherently. We're born with them. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Government is organized to protect those rights, and these are rights that are worth dying for. This idea. And so they did. And so many of you, I saw you stand up. Right? I saw you all stand up. You made that commitment. Your willingness to go to faraway places, to give your lives in service to us, your fellow countrymen, to preserve those rights. that have made us a nation. That's the why behind the Borgstrom brothers and so many of you. And then the other question I had to ask is, do we really know what sacrifice is today? There are so many of you here, and I love seeing so many of you here, but by my estimate, less than probably 5% of Utahns will come to an event like this today to pay tribute. We're not even willing to sacrifice an hour. What is this day about? It's for so many people, it's about a barbecue and getting a good deal on a mattress, and yet you are here because you know better. You understand that again, sacrifice is about more than that. And whenever we meet someone who has served, these hats, we've got our Vietnam vets here, and I see these hats, and we say, what do we say every time we see you? We say, thank you for your service, right? Thank you for your service. Okay, the question I have is, how do we thank you for your service? I think the way we thank you for your service is by serving. I think that's what the Borgstrom brothers would have wanted. By serving in our military, if that's your calling, by just giving back in our communities. You see, the Borgstrom brothers didn't give their lives for Republicans. They didn't give their lives for Democrats. They gave their lives for America, this country, for all of us as Americans. And when we serve, something magical happens. When we give back in our community, we stop caring about the political persuasions of our neighbors, and we just start caring about our neighbors. I think that service is what makes America different and great. Did you know that Americans serve and give back to their community more than any nation on earth? And I'm pretty sure you know the second part of this. Utahns lead the United States in service every year. So right now, we are surrounded in the place where more people serve their state, their neighbors, their country than anywhere else on earth. That's how we give back, and that's how we make America great. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel so lucky to live here today. I'm grateful for the patriots that are here today. Patriotism is not a t-shirt. Patriotism is not a bumper sticker. It's not about how loud you are. Patriotism is about what you do to forget about yourself. Patriotism is never selfish. Patriotism is selfless. Patriotism is about building our communities and making them better. And, if called upon, being willing to give our life for this idea. I hope that every one of us is willing to die for the idea of America. But if not called upon to give our lives, it's my prayer that we will wear out our lives giving back to this place that has given us so much. May God bless every one of you veterans who have served. May God bless the memory of those who have died in service to our nation. And may God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world, the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I went on a walk this morning in my neighborhood. I saw one flag. And I can give you a million reasons why we should display our flag, display our patriotism. And Governor, you hit the nail right on the head. Thank you. We now come to a solemn part of our ceremony. The laying of the wreath is a powerful symbol of our respect and remembrance. We are not going to lay this wreath today, but I would like to invite Governor Cox, Representative Malloy, and Gary Harder to come and stand behind the wreath at this time. Once they are there, I would like to have a moment of silence to honor those millions of men and women who paid and gave their lives for this great country. Thank you. The Utah National Guard Salute Battery will now perform a 21-gun salute, which will be followed by the playing of taps, and I invite you all to stand. Thank you. You may be seated. And as we conclude this ceremony today on this beautiful, beautiful sunny day in Utah, I want to thank each of you for being here and for showing your patriotism and your love for our men and women who are fallen. Your presence is a powerful testament to the enduring legacy of our fallen heroes. Let us carry their memory with us, not just today or tomorrow, but for the rest of our lives. Thank you, and have a safe Memorial Day.